On television, there are all sorts of game shows. Think for a moment, what is your favorite game show? Do you have a favorite game show? I don't want to tell on my mother, but I suspect I may know what her favorite game show was in the late 60s, early 70s. Because the story is told in my family that the first words of my older brother, Jeff, his first words were, Bob Barker. I couldn't make this up. And so if his first words were Bob Barker, it's probably the case that he was sitting in front of a television with which game show? The Price is Right. Have we all seen The Price is Right? With that big wheel that's spun twice every show. How it is that they spin the wheel hoping to get a big prize, big money. There are a lot of game shows that have wheels like that. Think of the Wheel of Fortune. They spin a wheel and they don't know where that wheel is going to stop. It could stop on $10,000 or it could stop on bankrupt, right? For our ancient ancestors, life was like a big wheel. The Wheel of Fortune is actually their concept. How it is that all of us are on this big wheel that just keeps spinning, and even though we may be on top one day, the next day we may be cast down. And even though we may be cast down one day, the next day we may be lifted up. And so for them, they often imagine the kings and the queens and the rulers being at the top of the wheel of fortune in life, and the poor and the lowly being at the bottom. But they also knew that things could change in a moment, that rulers could be cast down, that the poor could be lifted up. And they believed that when the Messiah came, that's exactly what was going to happen. Like mother, like son, Mary preached about a day when the world was going to turn, and Jesus did as well. And when it turns, where do you want to find yourself? Because the first will be last, and the last will be first. The wheel of fortune is going to continue turning. Jesus, in today's gospel, warns his friends about trying to be on top, trying to be the greatest. In today's gospel, Jesus' friends are arguing about who's going to be the greatest. Jesus warns them to be careful. Because in today's first reading from the book of wisdom, we hear what it is that happens when people try to be the greatest. There are others who try to bring them down, like crabs in a bucket, right? Those who are the greatest have a target on them, and others are ready to throw darts. Think of so many leaders in our city, in our state, in our nation, in our world. Those who try to be great suddenly wear the target. Jesus says, instead of trying to be the greatest, maybe we should aspire to be servants, to reach down and to help those in need, to help lift them up. How is that for a challenge? We recognize that when you're at the bottom of the wheel of fortune, you can't go down any farther. You can only go up. And if Christ is going to work in this world to help those who are at the bottom of the wheel of fortune, it's going to be through us. Through us being the hands and the heart of Christ to those in need. This week, we celebrate Saint Luigi Tapparelli, the Italian priest who coined the concept of social justice. How it is that instead of having these disparate persons, those who are wealthy and those who have nothing, how it is that social justice is a concept of all of us being more sisters and brothers, lifting up those, empowering those who need our help. Luigi Taparelli. Next week, we'll celebrate St. Vincent de Paul. Have you heard his name before? The thrift shops in town? Because he was one who tried to lift up the poor and the hungry and the thirsty. Sisters and brothers, it seems that this week's scriptures call us to leave aside all the selfishness and jealousy that we hear about in today's second reading, and instead to clothe ourselves in the virtues of Christ, not striving to be the greatest in this world, but as Jesus tells us in today's gospel, striving to be among those who need us, who need our help, so that they too can be lifted up and enjoy some of the fruits of the wheel of fortune. Today is the third Sunday of the month, and so on the